and welcome to Conversations here on NTA Network. My name is Nike, and Conversations is all about you and me. We throw the spotlight on different issues at different times. Today, we have an interesting one, but first, let's get to meet the people in the Conversations room.
Kevin Fineface, a security and energy expert and public good advocate.
I'm Dr. Kabir Adamu. I'm a security risk management expert.
Oh, awesome.
I'm Enobong Robin. I'm here to learn about security.
Well, Enoba has said it. We're here to learn all about security, our personal security, security of the community, and even a few levels above that. We'll even get to security in terms of government and what government should be doing for us, our expectations, and so much more. So don't go anywhere. It's all about security today on Conversations.
When there's a child out there that's not getting the same that your own child is getting, the difference will tell, and there will come a time in the society where that child is going to take its pound of flesh.
Where you can actually, everything from watching a program with the child, you can start off the conversation from something on the TV and say, oh, you know.
For me, it's like, hurry up with this business. And the other one said, Auntie, it's not about me, it's about the guys. They're not ready to marry.
Yes. If she wants to ask something, no, I know my mother very well. In fact, the most interesting one is when I put up pictures on WhatsApp, you know, Snapchat filters and all that, she will call me, remove that picture. There was a day I got tired of all that and I said,
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words. Run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
When there's a child out there that's not getting the same that your own child is getting, the difference will tell, and there will come a time in the society where that child is going to take its pound of flesh.
Where you can actually, everything from watching a program with the child, you can start off the conversation from something on the TV and say, oh, you know.
For me, it's like, hurry up with this business. And the other one said, Auntie, it's not about me, it's about the guys. They're not ready to marry.
yes. If she wants to ask something, no, I know my mother very well. In fact, the most interesting one is when I put up pictures on WhatsApp, you know, Snapchat filters and all that, she will call me, remove that picture. There was a day I got tired of all that and I said,
We're talking about security today here in the conversation room. I have Dr. Kabir, Mr. Kevin Fineface, and Bong, and we're going to be talking about how security affects me and you.
Yeah.
This is the season of, mind your business. It's very hard for me to see something going on in my neighbor's compound, and I want to say something because I might be abused for it. They'll be like, what's your own? Mind your business and everything. So are we getting to that phase in life where we shouldn't be talking about, things that are happening around us, or should we just go ahead, bite the bullet, and face some of these issues? Because some of them border on security. I don't know if Dr. Kabir will want to start.
Yeah, a lot of the things around us actually affect our security. We need to talk about them. There is a slogan and a sensitization campaign by government all around the world. See something, say something. And that thing is actually, a development of the realization that we don't speak a lot about what we see around us. And the reasons are manifold. Sometimes, unfortunately, in the past, when people have spoken, they have landed themselves in trouble. So over time, people have learned to keep quiet. Even though we do talk among ourselves, I mean, you just need to go on Twitter or Instagram and you see virtually everything being spoken about.
Yes.
But are we directing that conversation to the right channel? I think that is where the issue is. So yes, we need to speak about the things we see around us, because at the end of the day, if we speak and steps are taken, then it will be good for our security. If we keep quiet, then that small thing that should have been nipped in the bud at the beginning would grow into a big monster that unfortunately will not be controlled.
Kevin?
Yeah, for what he said, I would like to put it from the angle of good neighborliness. We cannot, pretend to live in isolation. We need to begin to know who those are our neighbors. One of the things I often do whenever I move to a new place is to get to meet my neighbors.
Yeah.
Knock on your door, get to let you know I live here, tell you what I do, so as to know what you do. It gives you a fair knowledge of the people you live with within an environment. What that does also, if they get to see someone come into my compound, they will want to be sure if it is part of my compound, it lives in is a family member or not. So good neighborliness will really help. See something, say something is a good thing. But I think government needs to begin to create more of anonymous windows for people to truly say something that they've seen, especially where that the level of compromise and connivance from inside of the security agencies is on the high side, where you saw something, you're saying it, and those who you're telling are supposed to protect you are giving information to the suspect that you are the one who brought it. It's your neighbor that brought this information to us. Ordinarily, we wouldn't have known. And the man brought further, said to know my neighbor, which of my neighbor. And he said, your neighbor now, one John. Okay, he goes and you become an enemy, like what you said.
Yes.
But we cannot, because of the fear of being stigmatized or called out, not to say things that can save the entire community. It's important we don't just keep quiet. It's also important for government to take the lead in creating a neighborhood environment for people to see what they've seen. And it's important also for people to truly see and say what they've seen, and not just to raise false alarm, like you find sometimes. There's a case at Ann, I saw it on Twitter yesterday. The young guy went to buy something from a lady in Jos, and they had some disagreement, and she reported him to the soldiers, the task force there, and they picked up the guy. The guy came back complaining of body ache 2 hours after he's dead.
Wow.
And now they could not. The lady has gone. She's just disappeared from the reports, from the stories we have on the ground, and they cannot even trace those who picked him.
Wow.
So we have scenarios like that, because abuse is inevitable once the importance of a thing is not known. So that's why we need to be sure that we are putting the right measures in place. Security is basically a condition.
Yeah, you've talked about government, once or twice already, but don't you think some of the blame is even on us as individuals? How secure are we as individuals? I mean, I can speak for myself sometimes, I can get down from the car and quickly just enter the supermarket without looking at my car, because I'm like, you know what, I can see the car, I can see if anyone is, there's a school of thought on taking your children to the market. If your children are in the market with you, don't leave them in the car. Have you ever gone
For me,
into the market with kids?
I think what you just said, the only question I have now is, where did we get it wrong? Because growing up, the society, the compound itself, it was a communal thing, you know. You come back from school, all the kids in the compound, they are playing together. Maybe there's a parent who is overseeing them. But if you're at work as a parent, you are sure that there was one parent they're taking care of like 20 kids who are playing, 10 kids. Even with the food, you could eat in anybody's house, and you are assured that by the time you come back from work, all you have to do is tell the neighbor, thank you. There was no expectation.
Yeah.
There was nothing. It was just fun and love and peace. But right now, with the fans, social media, the vices around, parents don't trust each other. As a matter of fact, kids are not even social anymore. You stay in the same compound and you may not even know the name of the neighbors in the next compound. So that for me is the one question I have. Where did we go wrong? Because way back, if something happened to you and my kids were playing with your kids, I could intercede. You understand? I can say, stop that. This is this person's child. Or I know this man, this is not what is going on. But right now, you can't really intercede. I think the first thing people do now is Instablog. You know, the first thing people do now is make a video for evidence, take pictures, send it to social media, go to Twitter. But how did we get to this point?
For that, when you mention the Instablog thing, there's a growing re-engineering, re-understanding of how things happen. Social justice has come to stay, and you find people seeking justice in the public space because the traditional system has actually failed to some extent. And when you don't dispense justice, you give judgment but no justice, and people will find a way to want to get justice. That's one. Two, because there's no trust with the relationship with the security agencies, someone cannot just go, like we said earlier, if there are no anonymous windows with which you pass vital information of security importance, then of course you want to look for the other means to use social media to throw it up there for people to see.
Okay.
Say we go on, sentimental appeals. People want to be seen to be adjudged to doing good, or as the one that is trying to shame one person or the other. So there's a need for social reengineering, no doubt about it. I grew up in a neighborhood where I used to have close to 15 to 20 kids left behind for me because I love kids. Parents would go to work and all of that, but that's not possible now, right? Because we're all living in isolation. The more we get ourselves involved in fending for ourselves in a situation, an economic situation where things are not really as it used to be, we are taking away communal relationship from our relationship. We are no longer doing so. We are living in isolation. Everybody to himself.
But that's for many reasons.
So
there have been situations where kids get injured in the same communal space. Kids get injured and no one saw anything.
Yeah, because you don't want to be attacked.
People get injured in the house.
Yes, I understand that. But if my kid gets injured in your compound, I would like to know what happened. What happened before? What happened at that point? What happened? What measures did you take right after? But if I go and they said, "Oh, he fell down," and you don't tell me anything more than that, my kid won't.
But then it was trust. You would trust that the adult around is going to
do the right thing. Even the first thing.
Let's separate two issues so that we're clear. There is safety and there is security. There are two different things.
Okay.
And one of the major, I would say, concerns in our society today is that we are not able to separate these two issues.
Okay.
So if you build a house, have you taken safety into consideration? So your stairs, as an example, if you have a staircase in the house, is there any signage there telling the visitor that be careful, there is a
it's
stairs
slippery
here. Or if you have a child. Just yesterday I was hearing from a friend, she has a 1 year, 3 months old baby. And then she left the baby crawling, and then a scorpion crept down, unfortunately, and
Ooh.
bit the baby. So those are safety issues, which we must be clear about. They are internal.
true.
They are internal to us, and unfortunately, as a society, we do not take measures to reduce the safety elements within our environment. Now, security features. That is where there is an outward attempt by usually an outsider to harm us.
Okay.
I say usually an outsider because sometimes it will be an insider.
Yeah.
Now, that would be a security threat. So I think we need to separate that. Now, with regards to your earlier statement, part of the reason why we found ourselves where we are is the collapse of the family value system. And there are a lot of reasons for that collapse. One of them is, unfortunately, religion. The preaching that religion used to do to make us understand the concept of being your brother's keeper. Unfortunately, it has reduced tremendously. The second very important thing is our selfishness, our desire to accumulate, forgetting that the other side too also wants to accumulate. And then, of course, very importantly, the failure of the government side to punish those who actually carry out those offenses. So when you ask why are we where we are, firstly, our development. We're living in a cosmopolitan city like Abuja. Likewise, if you go to Lagos, you have the same problem. But if you go to my village, for instance, they are still living the way you described.
Yes, I think
so. I think part of the challenge is...
We are going back to the village.
You know, there have been situations where, you know, Abuja is a constantly evolving city. So, you know, you have pockets of development, and then right beside it is, you know, property that isn't developed at all. That happened to my mom. She had her building, and then right beside it was a building that wasn't completed. And both of us drove out and left for church, and some people in the abandoned building just jumped into her compound and they robbed us. You know, so the issues with abandoned buildings in particular, is there something that can be done to protect us, those of us that are living in, you know, fully occupied buildings?
So two levels. Firstly, we what we talked about, see something, say something. When we notice abandoned buildings like that, we should report it.
An abandoned building?
Yes. To who? To the police, as an example. I've done it.
This building is abandoned?
Yes. So
is that an agency?
So the police. You mention it to the police, yes.
Okay.
Because what they will do, if they are doing the right thing, they will investigate who owns that land.
Okay.
And then go and tell the person who owns the land that your land, which is abandoned, is becoming a haven for criminals.
Oh, okay.
So, and then if it's reported to the Development Control Agency, they can even confiscate that land from the person. They will give him time to build it, or in some instances put a fence and a gate so that it stops.
Or you get a security to be able to secure the place.
Abandoned building.
So wait, though, let me ask you, I can just carry my phone, call police and say there's an abandoned.
No, not
like
necessarily.
I'm telling you, it happened.
You guys make me a
No, it happened.
He's done
It has happened. In fact, twice.
Is that a proper thing?
Once in Kano, and then the other one in Maiduguri.
Wow.
Unfortunately, the one in Maiduguri, and this is a bit funny, it belongs to the mother of the former governor of the state. So by the time it was reported, there was nothing that could be done. But then it triggered some action, because immediately after it was reported, even though we could not force her to build it, she fenced it, and then ours was that it shouldn't become a haven. What youths would go there in the evening, smoke, and then from that smoking they would see certain things, and before you know it, it becomes an
they start doing certain things, and not because it's well informed, it's been able to take that out. For some of us, they won't even bother and say, you know, abundance, darkness, you know, encourages crime. Darkness anyway encourages crime. That's what they call the crime control through environmental design, which is building your houses or putting infrastructure in such a way that it makes it difficult for any criminal elements to carry out such kind of operations. Sometimes things happen to people. Abandoned buildings just spring up from nowhere. It could be some various reasons, but there are also provisions in the development control that, you know, frowns at being abandoned for a longer period.
Yeah.
Because once it's been abandoned, you allow for rodents and other things to begin to take heaven in that area. Once rodent comes in that place, it means snakes will come in. It means other factors will begin to come in. The ecosystem will begin to build up. Then you now find these guys who find it as a comfortable ground for ease of doing business. in the other terms, because they come to smoke. When they come to smoke or take their different drugs, what comes to drugs is sex, and those things happen so easily. You
In
find
an abandoned building?
Yeah, no. It's prevalent.
So,
See, I have a neighbor.
just to add to your point, anytime there is pressure on the civil security agencies in Abuja, as an example, they know what we're talking about. The first places they start raiding most of these abandoned buildings.
places.
So it's a fact.
Okay.
I have a neighbor who was building just close to, or just a few blocks away from mine,
Yeah.
and I went there. I was in his office, and he said, "You won't believe it." They went to work. Some guys, the laborers went to work, and they saw liters of condoms everywhere.
Wow.
In that abandoned building. So what they did was to begin to put doors, makeshift doors to block every
least,
window, every access point to that structure.
Okay.
I will now put on light there. So they didn't have any place to come lock around because there's lights.
Okay.
I also did the same thing. So we told everybody to put on your lights. Just put some light. Because there's light, they don't come around. To shock you, I was in my car parked, I was in my neighbor's place parked, and a lady walked up to me and said, she spoke outside, she was putting on this job, and I didn't understand what she was saying. And she gave signs, and when she gave those signs, I'm like, excuse me, and she started walking away. So when I mentioned it, I said, I don't know. They come around
Ah,
because there's darkness,
wow.
because there's darkness, so they come around. They know how they congregate.
Ah.
Anything can happen in the midst of darkness.
So in the past, there was this attempt to create what they called smart city in
Yes.
Abuja.
Yes, I remember.
The concept of the smart city would have allowed CCTVs, it would have allowed lighting,
We can
I'm
go
just
back to
trying
that
to
at some
reinforce
point.
the point that lighting is significant to security.
I was just going to get to that. As an expert, if I was to leave my home for a long weekend, a week, is it better to have the lights in my compound on or off? Because if it's
Two
on
ways.
during the day, people will know that there's nobody at home. I mean, why is the light
look
on?
at two ways, right? We live in a times currently where technology has made life so simpler with innovations. You don't need to actually leave your lights on. All you need to have is to have a smart lighting system. And with your phone, anywhere in the world, it's
Kevin.
cost effective.
I think you're going a bit too
Yeah, I was just going to say.
I've got it.
It's very cheap. It's very
I see
cheap.
these things on,
it's very-
CNN and the rest of
They're
it.
available, but
Very
not
cheap.
many people
Two,
have
you can
them.
also have simple lights, solar panel lights that is also sensitive to movements. Light sensors.
Okay.
So at night they pop up once anybody walks around it, and they go off again because they're just sensors. Some of these lights are like 10,000 naira. You understand? In your compound. Then at home, you have a switch that you just put in there that's more of a retrofit. You don't need to break any wall. It's a retrofit. It just means that you have a switch before. You bring another switch that is, had an RFID, and you put it, and you just connect these things, and it goes on. So you don't need to think about. It's important your light goes off and on. If the light stays on for a longer period, it tells somebody who has interest, who has been monitoring your place, to say, oh, she's not around or he's not around. So what they will now do is to try burglary to see if they can get something, if you don't have any form of security. So from time to time, what I encourage people to also do is that from time to time, try as much as possible to avoid any type of routine that you do. Also, create some impression. Some people put CCTV here, but they don't have CCTV. They have dummy CCTV. They don't have any functional CCTV.
Yeah.
Some people tell you there are dogs here. Beware of dogs. They don't have.
Or beware of snakes.
Beware of snakes. They do those things
Even lions people are
deliberately
using.
to kind of ward off intruders.
Okay.
This things happen. See, we live in the times where we have to survive in any means necessary. If the government on our part is having challenge with budgetary consideration, you mentioned the smart city. 700 and something million naira was spent for Abuja CCTV project. None is working currently.
And we're paying loan for it,
And we're
actually.
paying loan for it. So, the Chinese government, the loan is ongoing, but none is working. Why? When the project was embarked on, I don't think they actually did a proper feasibility study and did this risk assessment. You see, guys like this are here, they won't call them. Kabiri, please come and help us to do a risk assessment on this project we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Let's be sure, okay, these are the intricacies and all of that. They won't do that. They come install the lights. The people don't take ownership of these things. And so what happens is that they start looking for a way to steal their own part of the national cake. You have CCTVs that are installed there, but not monitored, so people go steal the CCTV. So you now ask your question, what was the objective behind this whole project? Why is there no ownership of this project? Who is supposed to be punished for it?
Who is to be held responsible?
Do you get?
Well, if you
People are supposed
recall,
to be sacked.
at the last budget hearing, the National Assembly attempted to pick up these issues you mentioned.
Okay.
Because when the Minister of Finance indicated that a loan will be paid, and of course the National Assembly was interested, what loan? And it turned out to be the smart city. And they asked the same smart city that is not functional, so that we don't deviate from our discussion.
Yeah.
But I just want to mention the point that some of these questions are being asked by the government. That's why we have a democracy checks and balance. The executive, even though not the current executive, the immediate past one, but government is a continuum. The legislative arm of government is now asking questions, and hopefully we hope that those questions will lead to some form of penalization.
Can I shock you? Can I shock you? No, we have a kind of a cobweb system in this country. What it means is that if somebody is involved in any corrupt act, he's actually spread the bounties, so it's difficult for you to truly punish somebody. You know, except look for a scapegoat to do that. You'll be surprised. We have the power probe that came up at the large 7th to 8th National Assembly, and nothing really happened. We saw all of those funfair that took place, and people were like expectant, wow, this kind of money, how come? But nothing really happened. Why? Because of the cobweb system. I think
I would suggest that we, the media, civil society organizations,
asking. That's what I'm going to
interrogate the question so that
we have to keep asking questions. But while we're asking questions, there's this adage. Forgive me, I have to use this pidgin English. That "Pick where they cry, they see road." Right? We cannot, because of the failure of governments, fail to do what we're supposed to do. We live in an age and time where information is like this.
Okay.
Google it. And just Google it, you have solutions that you can
at your fingertips.
Just do it yourself.
You know what? One solution that I would like us as citizens to tackle: the highway bushes, or bushes that lead into estates. Sometimes you can see your estate right there, but to get there, your heart is beating because you're scared that someone might jump you at any point in time. Someone's just going to come. It happens. So whose responsibility? I feel that the community should work on things like that, things as simple as highway bushes, because I know there's a particular estate, they burn the bushes down. It might not be
very
environmental,
but
the environment and all that's not really a good idea, but they burn the bushes down just so that they can see.
I think there is a government policy that says from the tar itself to up to a particular distance it must be cleared, and there is a government department.
Local government. Yeah, it's a local government
department that actually is budgeted for.
It's budgeted for.
So this is
No
I think our role as citizens is firstly you're doing the right thing, bringing it out. But we as citizens, we need to also ask questions, and not only ask questions,
Because
go to that
we don't
department.
Nikkei, what? I think on this show we have to bring the budget and bring an expert to educate us, because these two men have said, oh, this one in the budget, this one, and we have no idea. Basically, we are here talking about different topics every day, and so many things come up, and it's like, what is going on?
I think, but let me tell you something that's going on here. You have not, found time to take the Nigerian project as your project. Every year, budget is being, passed. You've not taken your time to at least pick the documents. Let's get to
study it.
It's a very small percentage of Nigerians that actually go through that.
Let me shock you.
But beyond the role of the government, and I think this is critical, because frankly, security is at the heart of everyone. So if for the listeners and all of us among ourselves, if we have such a situation and is within something that we can take care of, we should put our hands together and take care of it. Because the point I think we should all agree is that those overgrown shops, overgrown grasses are a haven for criminals. One clear example in the city in Abuja here, there are certain locations where in the past criminals, and these are youths that are hanging around, have taken advantage of under the bridge, as an example, with overgrown wheat.
Yes.
What they do is they hide under those wheat. Sometimes they are even farms. And to be fair to government has come up with a policy, okay, don't plant maize in certain locations because maize grow tall, and once the grain is out, the criminals can hide under them. Or you can plant beans,
yes.
another low climbing plants like that. So it's the reality, and where, as it were, government is not responding, then we should come together as a community and clear.
I get that. I get that.
housing?
But that you see, community come together and sort out environment. Community come together and do water. Community come together and clear bush. So it's a toll on my salary every single time. Come together and do security, just like you said. We're doing so much already.
And we are paying tax to do.
And
We need to take ownership of the Nigerian project. 3 years ago, I was stabbed 4 times. Mabuchi, under the bridge, under the flyover.
Sorry, say that again?
Yes, I was stabbed back, had stitches on my hand and all of that.
Oh my God.
What were they after?
Around 8 p.m., the car had developed a fault. I was just waiting for a callback vehicle, and 2 guys just appeared. And so the next I said, okay, take my wristwatch. As I was pulling off the wristwatch, I had a stab behind me. There was no fight.
Oh my goodness.
As soon as I turned, wow! I turned, the next thing, my arm. So the way it was going, I had another young guy with me who ran, because he too was also, he ran. So I saw that this was death. So I said, okay, it's only one life and one death. Let me hold on to this guy that I'm seeing right here so that both of us can die
together. We die here. What?
I called the police. And they said I called the wrong emergency number.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
My cousin called, I went to Metema police and said, look, my brother has issue, please follow us. So that they said, no, that's not our jurisdiction, they can't come in.
Oh my goodness.
We went through all of that until, now it took God, in quotes, because I was bleeding and nobody could stop. Every passerby was afraid of what it was. I was calling for help, nobody wanted to stop. The point is this, there was no light on that Azikiwe Expressway.
Wow.
If there was lights, those guys wouldn't have had the temerity with which they do what they did because people would have seen what was going on.
Yeah.
Right? But there was no light, so what happened? They succeeded in taking all the things they wanted to take
and stabbing
and got me injured. If we don't hold government to account, if people come to seek for our votes and we don't have a contract, social contract with them, we lack the moral right to also make certain demands or ask questions. I'm looking forward to the time where we cannot just go to the polling booth and just do our vote. But we'll go to the polling booth to ensure that we are part of the political process, right from being members of political parties, social, group, you understand, and ensuring that we have people that are supposed to. So if some group of person believe that, they want to hijack the political process and in the primary, install somebody, impose someone on us, we'll look out for any other person in any other party and vote for. So we'll go beyond party lines and vote for individuals for credibility.
Yeah.
If we keep doing that, if we start doing stuff like that, we have credible people to man leadership position and authority in the country, we cannot demand for services. As citizens also, we should not just sit down. Budget has come up with this fantastic idea, breaking down the budget in simple documents and graphics. It shows you how much money.
Unfortunately, I hate to disappoint you. They have not yet reached the security sector.
No,
we need a security sector reform in Nigeria. Currently, the issues around security are opaque. They are not transparent. And budget, in spite of its attempt to make other sectors, unfortunately, security still remains. And the argument is this: security is supposed to be secret. It's supposed to be confidential.
But is this common practice? Is this global best practice in other countries? Is this budget for security top secret?
So we need to separate two things. We need to separate the process itself from the requirement. If, as a Nigerian, it's taxpayers' money that they are using to fund the police and the military,
yes.
I have a right to know how much is being given to them. So that's best practice. All countries will make the budget available. But in terms of the details, yes, it may not be all that.
It might not be all that in public
space.
sphere.
So that is, and the one that really bothers me is the so-called security vote.
Yes.
It is something that was started under the military era.
Could you, for those that don't know what a security vote is, could you explain that?
So these are monies that are not budgeted for, but that unfortunately have become part of our system.
Allocated,
So every
allocated.
level of governance, from the federal to state to local government, are given funds
Called
that are
security
not called security
votes.
votes, that are not audited, and unfortunately that are not budgeted for.
No, Kabir, I think they have certain amount which is already budgeted.
No,
But they are not.
I tell you with all sense of responsibility, it's not budgeted for. What I mean is not budgeted for. You will not pick the 2020 budget and see security vote.
Yeah, because
So it's hidden somewhere.
it's allocated funds.
Under a subhead.
A subhead.
That is
Oh,
not,
I see.
That is not known.
Obvious, yeah.
You
So
know.
You don't know it, I don't know it, but
Yes, and so we cannot audit it.
okay.
Yes,
okay.
and then the
Okay.
president, the national security advisor, the governor, or whoever it is,
The local
can-
government
can-
chairman.
can use it the way he
So
likes.
the
that
government
means-
chairman has.
That means there's no checks and balance, because if a state governor is given this security vote to disburse, commissioner for police commissioners and all that, and he decides not to.
No, it's not necessarily given for him to disburse to commissioner of police.
But I'm just saying for
it is an
security
allocation.
purpose. I
it's
don't
an
know how they
allocation.
allocate it. I'm
It's
just
an
making
allocation
an
that
assumption.
is done. It could be 700 million for security, but in case city, in quotes. There is in
Like I said,
anticipation.
it started under the military era.
Yeah.
But my question now is, you know about security votes. The commissioner of police in the state knows about security votes, and they know that at so and so points, this fund is available, and it doesn't get to them. All right, it's like a national cake. All right, it doesn't get to them. Do you think this can hinder their judgment on security? Because something can happen. There's a state, that's Cross River State. Excuse me, I'm going to say the security situation is horrible. All right,
Southern Carolina.
and nobody is really doing anything about it. People are getting stabbed, people are getting killed. It's on a daily basis. So I know that this is something that the commissioner for police, it can be arrested. This situation can, but is it that the governor is not releasing security votes to the people that should help? Because it's more like,
So,
let us live.
It's more than that. The political class in Nigeria, unfortunately, are partly responsible for the situation that we are in. In Cross River State, as an example,
Yeah.
a few years back, I did an assessment of Cross River, and I said that there will be issues in this state. Without meaning to sound political and without calling names, a previous governor's wife started a pet project where she invited young kids from across the region
yeah.
with the idea of setting up, like I said,
A foundation
a
for them,
foundation.
yes.
But somewhere along the line, after inviting
fell.
the kids, it fell. So if you go to Cross River, at that time you see kids around the ages of 12, teenagers, hanging around.
Yes.
And I kept on asking the question, what are we doing about these
What
kids?
provision are you making for this?
Because she has invited
They are
them
growing.
from all over, and they're there. They are growing. They are seeing beautiful things of life. They are not going to school. So one day, they will become, nuisance, social nuisance. And I think that's part of the problem.
It is
Then
alarming.
On the one
Honestly,
hand.
Nike.
On the other
Honestly,
hand, what I call the involvement of non-state actors in politics. So our politicians arm some youth gangs to protect them during elections. And the INEC chairman said it before the Bayelsa and Kogi elections. He warned that he's aware that touts have been engaged, that they are going to either influence the outcome of the elections or to disrupt the elections in favor of candidates. So that is a common thing all over the country.
Yeah,
now, in the case
that's-
of Cross River, we have what I will call oligarchs. They are powerful politicians who over time have instituted themselves into, for lack of a better word, cult leaders. So that if you dare to say anything against them, those cult gangs are there to deal with you. So even though the state security agencies are aware of this, because they are backed by powerful politicians,
It's hard to.
then unfortunately sometimes they are not able to act quickly. So this is on the one hand. On the other hand, we must admit that the governors sit over state council meetings where all of this
Is discussed.
yeah.
apart from discussed, the DSS is represented, the police, the military, name them, they are all there. So they discuss security issues in the state. So I'm just trying to respond to your question when you say why is nothing being done. They are aware of these things. But because of the conspiracy of silence that we as a society have come to accept
Which is back to what I said, mind your business. That's a lot of people do. And out of curiosity though, I'm those of us that are parents, how do we teach our children to be more security conscious?
Taekwondo.
Hey, are you a fan of self-defense classes? I'm not.
I am.
I can't even lift 12 kg weight, guy. I'm not doing that
to be
with
realistic,
anyone.
For our kids.
It's about awareness. I mean, everything. If you ask me to speak security in 1 second, I'll tell you awareness.
Okay.
Awareness. So we need to
Know what
talk
you need to
to
know.
our kids. Let them be conscious of the dangers around them. So kidnapping, how many of us have sat down with our kids and explained to them what kidnapping
going
is
on?
and how
to.
they can fall victim to kidnap? What anti-kidnap measures as a family have we taken? So you take the kids to school. Have you told them, for instance, that if someone is coming to pick them and if he doesn't mention XYZ, or he doesn't
if he don't
present a
speak.
card, or he doesn't say a quote that you've agreed to, that they shouldn't follow him? The school that your kids are going to, do they have cards that they've given to parents that only holders of those cards? So consciousness from at the level of the kids, at the level of the parents, at the level of the school, the nannies, and everyone around us in our space. Have we taken time to learn about that and then to teach each other around that? That for me would be the beginning. If we haven't, then this is the time to do it. Each security threat, because I just used kidnapping as an example, there are several other security threats. We need to pick them one by one. Have discussions with the kids, sometimes during dinner or lunch, or just when we're coming back from church or mosque, as it were. Have a discussion with them. Allow them to ask questions, because we are guilty, unfortunately, as African parents.
Yes.
We don't encourage our kids to ask questions, and when they do, sometimes we shut them down. No, we shouldn't.
But not all of us anyway.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, because I'm a different man, a different parent to that effect.
I'm
My kids
happy to
ask
hear
me
that.
Question though. This concerns the security on the road at night. I mean the checkpoints. What is the proper attitude from the civilian to the police person and vice versa? All right. Initially, when I would drive past a security point, I would brake, on my light, wind down, and all that, and then they tell me to go. Then one day I'm in the car with a lawyer friend of mine who happens to be in the UK, has been there forever, and he's like, "Why do you have to wind down? All you have to do is drive slowly, get close to them, on your light, they can see you, and go." And I'm like, hold on, what did you say? He said, you don't have to wind down. I'm like, this is Nigeria. Don't do that. So, when he left, the next day I tried it, all right? And this guy had his flashlight on my eyes, so I couldn't even see where I was going. I had to stop. I didn't have a choice. And then when I wandered down, I'm like, good evening, sir. And then he says, fine girl, I will go home with you tonight. Imagine. I said, I was shocked. I'm like, what kind of conversation? I'm like, oh God, please, I'm just coming up from work. I am tired, I need to go. But I've seen them, at night, you are tired, you need to go, and they are trying to ask you for money. For me, it's okay if you have the money, give them, because it's cold.
No, it's not okay. I'm sorry,
okay.
it's not okay.
Sorry, I mean, if you have money, don't give. So, but I need to know the proper protocol, the proper thing to do at that point.
Standard operating procedure.
You said it. You slow down and you get to where you put on your lights. In fact, before you get into the checkpoint, your inner light must have been on so that it gives visibility. It also helps you to know way ahead of time to know if these people are actually real policemen. Because you need to be sure that there's what we need to do. Basic security education. You made mention of awareness, which forms all of that. How much information do we have as citizens to know our simple road drills? How much information do we have as citizens as to know simple basic security architecture within our neighborhood? We're not well informed, we're not well educated. Everything happens by happenstance. We are a people that are experiential in nature.
Yes.
It's when we have an encounter, we now begin to learn from the process. By right, security, safety drills and health is supposed to be done in schools. From primary schools, it's supposed to be health and safety.
Drill, fire
drills, yes.
Those things. Some schools that are well advanced, especially those foreign schools, they'll do those things.
Yes.
Every now and then they have their monster drills, and to get the monster up and all of those things. But we don't find it in public schools. It used to be back then in school, because I went to public school, and we had that experience. You know,
Okay.
public safety was there, but we don't have that anymore. So we can begin to reintroduce that into our curriculum to ensure that our kids understand simple basic drills. That by the time you get to a certain level, nobody needs to tell you what you need to do. You now know that, see, if you see a police officer, if you see checkpoint, in some cases, checkpoints, you also pre-informed that there will be checkpoint at XYZ location. Because there's every likelihood, if you're not informed, that criminals can also put their own checkpoints.
Checkpoints up,
We've
yes.
seen situations like in the Northeast, the guys are dressed in military camouflage, acting like military checkpoint, and weeks up people out of that place. And people are actually rented. So we need to constantly educate us. And that's why the security agencies need to be held responsible in this time. Because they have not been able to well inform the public as to help them. Now, there's another aspect. Unprofessional conduct is a common trend you find across the security agencies. Unprofessional conduct, you find it across the agencies. Why? A lot of these people that are employed were not qualified for the job. They find themselves in that environment, and so when they see you, it is an aberration for an officer to stop and say, "Fine girl."
That's
very
wrong.
violated.
Not
It is not acceptable.
Because he's
What do
on
you mean I'm
duty.
going home with you?
But you
He's
see,
on duty.
it was a good thing that you kept quiet, or else the case would have been turned against
Yes,
you.
Would have,
yes.
It would have.
And it's some-
When there's a child out there that's not getting the same that your own child is getting, the difference will tell, and there will come a time in the society where that child is going to take his pound of flesh.
Where you can actually, everything from watching a program with the child, you can start up the conversation from something on the TV and
Yeah.
say, oh,
For me, it's like, hurry up with this business. And the other one said, Auntie, it's not about me, it's about the guys. They're not ready to marry.
Yes.
See if she wants to ask something. No, I know my mother very well. In fact, the most interesting one is when I put up pictures on WhatsApp, Snapchat filters and all that, she will call me, remove that picture. There was a day I got tired of all that and I said,
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Cases that can even kill you.
We're almost out of time, but I have
He
this one
definitely is a
last
liar.
question that I would like Dr. Kabir to speak on. What are your thoughts on individuals having their own security items, products? I'm not sure if I'm getting the right word. Like
Self-defense
Gadgets.
items,
self-defense gadgets.
pepper spray,
items.
and the rest of them.
What are your thoughts on that, just as we round up?
It can come in handy, but we
Okay.
should be very conscious of how we use it.
Guns, add guns.
So remember that if you have a toy gun, as an example, or a pepper spray, and you bring it out to use it, and the adversary has a real gun, he's not going. He or she is not going to think it's a toy gun at that point in time. He will use his real gun.
Yeah.
So we have to be very conscious.
Education.
No, I wanted to emphasize the point around the element of surprise that's in our side. So drills that he mentioned is the way to go.
Okay.
Have drills, have that element of surprise to your advantage, because he's expecting you to be meek and compliant, and then surprise him. And when you surprise him, go for the kill.
Oh.
Because the point I'm making is this: he would not imagine that it's a toy.
Yeah.
If he's going to come back at you, he's coming back with real force.
Real force, real power.
So
I'm
it's
thinking
either,
fighting
it's either you
classes.
don't do it, or when you do it, you go for the kill.
Okay.
And my advice as a professional who has been doing this for a very long time is don't do it.
Don't do it at all.
Be compliant. If it's property, most times they would not, if they are criminals, and most of what we have around are criminals, they're after what they can get from you. Give it to them.
Just
But
let
it's
go.
unfortunate. I try to give it to them, and they
And
end up,
there is a reason.
you
I
know.
think
They want to instill more fear.
No,
you get-
so from experience, one of the things we've noticed is this. They size you up. If you are dressed like this, then they know that that is not all you have, the wristwatch. So they size you up.
Kevin.
They size you up, really. There's what we call a crime cycle.
Yeah.
It's a 5-step issue. They size you up. So don't be too quick.
Okay.
Imagine that it's President Buhari in front of you, that criminal. And the same way you would be, respectful and compliant, be compliant with them. Meanwhile, you are probably thinking of how best to react. So let him order you, give me this gift before you give.
Okay. All right. We've run out of time. We've been talking about security here in the conversations room. I'm sure you have one or two ideas, some comments that one of our panelists has spoken about, and you would like us to know about it. Our social media handles are available on the screen. We would love to hear from you. So on behalf of Enobong, Dr. Kabir, Kevin Fineface, and myself, see you again soon. Goodbye.
Bye.